Oh, I have a meeting. Okay, I get a 12 o'clock meeting. Okay, I will call you after. Okay, okay, bye. Hi. Am I not talking?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
hi.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I don't see you, but I can hear you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm trying to join here.
Recording in progress.
Oh boy, I'm got a reverb.
So who are you talking to, Heather?
I was talking to
It's
you.
Steve.
I could hear you, but not see you.
Okay.
It's Steve Young.
I see you, Steve, popping in and out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to connect here. I couldn't connect my audio, so I've got the phone and the video separately. Trying.
Is Zoom just doesn't work for you, or is it something within the settings? Do you know?
No, it's Zoom.
I do not know. I'm 68, so I'm starting to fail with this kind of stuff a little bit.
It's okay. It's given me a lot of
I'm good
problems
now,
too.
though.
All right.
Holy goodness. I think I just ruined it again here. I'll get there again. Sorry.
No.
I can't. How do I get to the audio? I push audio.
Well, I can hear the audio. You need to hit your little camera that's down at the bottom where there's like a mute button, and then it's like video. And if you click on it, then your camera should come up. There you go.
There you go. Okay.
So you just have to hit the camera at the bottom, and then we should all be able to see you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to hit the screen to get to that camera thing. And then, okay.
There we go. There we are. Oh, slow, but sure.
Good job.
How's everybody doing today?
Good. How about you?
Very well. I'm going to mute myself here so I don't bother people.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
How's the trail pickup?
Say again?
How's your trail pickup with all your trees down and?
Oh, it's bad. They've been working nonstop. To give you an idea, the Sunrise Trail, which is 80 miles long, had 400 trees down.
Is that one of your biggest trails though?
Well, it's one of the longest rail trails, but when you start looking statewide, snowmobile trails, you got 16,000 miles. Hopefully they all don't have that kind of tree down and that kind of mileage, but we've got significant, I just was on the phone an hour ago trying to figure out what we're going to do. We lost a 146-foot long bridge and the steel's in the river and they're trying to figure out how to get it out, but they're going to need a crane. They can't get a crane in there right now. And, everybody's worried about if we leave it till spring, what's going to happen. And there's just a whole pile of situations like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good.
No.
Are you going on vacation this year?
I'm going on permanent vacation.
Are you retiring?
I am.
Good for you.
Yeah,
this
how old are you, Brian?
Broken leg, ankle, and everything else thing's just making it all the more convinced that it's time for me to get out of the way. I'll probably never be as mobile as I once was. I mean, we'll see, given time, whether it all comes back, but I don't know. Time for the younger people to step up.
No offense, but it'll never come back, Brian. It never comes back.
That's what I'm afraid of, Steve.
Yeah. You have younger people to step up, Brian?
Well, I think so. Hopefully.
Oh, good.
We got some good staff and, field staff, very capable, and hopefully some of them will step up.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, my husband retired and they hired him back to work for 2 days a week.
Yeah, well, they probably want to do that to me, and depending on how they do it, we might be able to work something out. But I don't want the job back. I don't want to be one of these guys that retires and then goes back and takes the job over, because that just hinders the others from working their way up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then we lose people.
That's right. And he's just doing it to help the other guy transition, but it's not working. They can't find anybody. So
that's a real issue. I mean, no doubt. We're struggling to fill positions too.
Yeah.
I'm in a different situation myself. They laid me off, and then they asked me to come back and help them.
Well,
Yeah,
as a
that's
contractor,
real nice of them, Steve.
Well, it's like industry. We've been doing contract work for Twin Rivers for 10 years now. I worked there for 20 years, and they laid me off, right? And then I'm back on contract. My son does most of the work. Now I'm feathering out a bit, but that's what it is.
Yeah. I hope the work ethic that we've been known for in the state doesn't go away. But I know as of late it's been hard. I mean, part of it, you know, the state's struggling same as everybody else. The pay scale, has to keep up or people leave. I've lost 2 people to outside, private jobs, and both of them doubled their pay by leaving the state. So it happens.
pay isn't everything, Brian.
No, it's true. I totally agree. But I feel like the current generation doesn't see it that way.
Right.
Pays everything to them. And I get it. I'm fortunate. Here I am. I've had a good career, a good life. I own my house. I own my camp. I have a few things. I'm not wealthy, but it's all paid for. If somebody, in their 20s decides they want a house and a camp and they want it like right now, they're gonna have some significant mortgages and they need money to pay them.
Yeah, like my family, for example, my daughter-in-law and my son, they bought property like 5 years ago. They couldn't buy it today. They couldn't. Fortunately, they bought it when they did. They're locked into low interest rates, but that's a big problem for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough. I was actually on a kind of a weird note. We had a conversation the other day, and I don't know if any of you know, we were trying to figure out what percentage of, the homeless population are actually working, because I know they said at Bar Harbor, most of the people in those camps down there were actually employed every day. They just couldn't afford to live down there. So they were living in tents out on the national park. And that's even more sad when you think about it.
Hi, Carla. Hi, Roberta.
Hello there.
I used to live in tents too, but I was working for the Canadian Wildlife Service at the time.
You had a good excuse. Who's joining us by phone, Heather?
Hey, Pete.
You're muted.
Hey, Chris.
Oh,
Sorry, there's some background noise here at the office today. It's Steve. He can't have his audio working on his computer, so he's called in so
Is
he
it
can
my
hear
phone
and
that
talk to
keeps
us.
on?
So
Yeah,
you're
I'm
in
sorry
two
about
places
that.
at
Let's see if I
once.
can
Okay.
mute it some. I don't know how to do that.
That's fine. You're in 2 places at once. Now I understand.
Hey,
Sorry
Chris,
about
are you
that.
back in your office? Did they get the building open?
Yeah, they got the. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
our building's open, but they're still cleaning it.
Wow.
Stairwells smell like a bait fish shop, but we're used to it here.
Oh.
Oh, dear.
Just give it a minute more to see if anyone else joins us. There are 9 of us here, so clearly we have a quorum, but let's see if we can just...
Vivian is out today, so I think we're just waiting for Rebecca and John.
Thanks.
So how many stayed up? Everybody wide awake at New Year's?
Absolutely.
I texted my son, he's a state police sergeant. He was working, so he was up. The rest of the family was right out cold. They all finally responded at about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I laughed. Emily and I she was like, it was a big deal to make our charcuterie board. We made a board and we were in bed by 8:30.
Long in bed by that time.
Yep.
Well, let's call this meeting to order. So this is a meeting of the Abandoned and Discontinued Roads Commission on January 3, 2024. Happy New Year to you all. And thank you for joining today. Let's do a roll call. Heather?
Sure. Carla Black.
Present.
Brian Bronson.
Present.
Peter Coughlin.
I'm here.
Rebecca Graham. Jim Katsiafikis.
Here.
Chris McCabe.
Here.
Roberta Manter.
Here.
Michaela's out. John Monk. Catherine Nadeau.
I'm still here. Yeah.
Ryan Pelletier.
Here.
And Steve Young.
Here.
All right. Again, thanks for joining. We sent out draft minutes for the December 21 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those? Are there any changes proposed to those minutes? I think, Roberta, you had a few.
Yeah, she supplied those. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I've got a cat mewing to go out. I'll be right back.
Okay. Does anyone have any?
Were what she submitted supposed to be, she felt that the minutes were wrong, or were they additional things she wanted added?
She had a couple of comments on the December 6 minutes and the December 21st minutes. Then she made comments on the Made Woodlands comments, and then she had some corrections she thought for the draft report and I think just draft legislation and draft report.
So the
Yeah, and
only
they
thing
were
that really
they were the
matters is
same-
those top three paragraphs she submitted, right? As far as the minutes for the 21st.
Yeah.
They were the same comments for basically for the 21st and the Woodland comments. She repeated herself there. But it's specific that she did not approve of the change to public easement in the chapter sections 3105A and 3106. So that was the big, I don't remember that restriction that we voted on, but that is the main point that I can see there.
I understand. Let's keep on the minutes for right now and see if we can get past that.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. I understand those comments did go beyond that. So, just trying to scroll down to. Let me get, I'll be right back. I'll get Roberta's comments on the minutes.
Minutes from December 6th. Meetings from December 21st. Mhm.
All right, let's see. Hi, John. Thanks for good that you can join us. All right. We have Roberta's proposed changes to the minutes for December 6th. So let's take those first. And I think these are correct. I think they're not new additions. They're just explanations of what was said, or more full explanations of what was said. Any other changes to the December 6th minutes that people want to make?
Well, are we agreeing about her that the private way to public easement excludes the subchapters in section 3105A and 3106?
I'm looking at Roberta's comments on the December 6th minutes, which is at the top.
Oh, just on that. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And
December 6 minutes. Okay, yeah.
I don't have any problem with this, with the inclusion of this. Does anyone else have a problem with it, or any discussion?
No, that sounds good.
My only question, I guess, was on page 8 on the vote. That's not actually changing the vote, right?
December 6th minutes? No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on the 21st.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong minutes.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I see it now. It's the third
We
paragraph
already
down.
accepted the December 6th, right? Last meeting.
I think we ran out of. I don't think we adopted this December 6th. I think we pushed them over to this meeting. Is that right, Heather?
Yes, because people didn't have enough time to review it because no one had power.
Right.
Good point. I do remember that.
Okay. So, is there a motion to adopt the December minutes, 6 minutes with Roberta's changes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. And a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, and we have to do a roll call vote. Sorry about that, Heather.
That's okay. Carla Black,
Yes.
Brian Bronson,
Yes.
Peter Coughlin,
Yes,
and Rebecca is out. James Katsiafikis,
Yes.
Chris McCabe,
Yes.
Roberta Manter,
Yes.
Vivian is out. John Monk,
Yes.
Catherine Nadeau.
I don't understand. You can get Katsiafikis.
Because when I look at it, I want to do the French version, and I know that's not how you say it. So I'm like, no.
Do the French version. I don't care. Just call me Kathy. Yeah.
I'll call you Kathy. That's fine.
Yeah.
Kathy. All right,
Oh,
Ryan.
yeah.
Why don't you use my French version? Peltze, come on, we'll keep there. Yes, I will vote for it.
Peltier. Yes.
Steve Young.
Here?
Nope.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Let's move on now that we're on a roll to the December 21 minutes. And let's see. The change that Roberta notes on page 4, she's listed twice. We can't have that. So we'll take out the first Roberta. And
Middle of the meeting. Can I call you back?
and then on page 8, more importantly, with regard to the motion, and I understand.
So I'm wondering if it makes sense if we first just look at the minutes and if there are any changes, and then vote on that, and then we can deal with Roberta's objection to her vote or wanting to change the vote. Jim,
I
would that make sense?
understand that piece. there's a paragraph. My request was for a motion to approve the draft legislation with a footnote asking for, right. I mean, I asked for the motion and it was with a footnote, and it was not just the legality of spending public funds on a public easement, which it was the legality of forcing private individuals to pay to maintain a public easement. And maybe that's the better way to state it. Roberta, does that make sense, of requiring or forcing private landowners to spend funds to maintain a public easement?
Yes.
Okay. As far as the vote, well, let's do this. Are we okay with the changes so far? I think they reflect what we were talking about. So there was a vote, and this reflects the vote that was taken. If we do anything different today to reconsider that vote, that will be reflected in today's minutes. So my suggestion is, let's have a motion to adopt the December 21st minutes as they are. And then we can move on to the issues that were raised by Carla and by Roberta to work through today. Does that make sense? Because what happened at the meeting happened at the meeting. There's a request to change what had been done, and that would be reflected in today's minutes. But we're just trying to have an accurate set of minutes of what happened on the 21st.
Yep, that sounds fine with me.
So can we have a motion to approve them as we've discussed, amended as we've discussed?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Carla Black,
Yes.
Brian Bronson,
Yes.
Peter Coughlin,
Yes.
Rebecca Graham, James Katsiafikis,
Yes.
Chris McCabe,
Yes.
Roberta Manter,
Yes.
Vivian's out, John Monk,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ryan Pelletier,
Yes.
Steve Young.
Yes.
All right, and now we go to the main attraction and the reason we're all here today. And that is that we have before us approval of the final report and proposed legislation that we have to submit to the State and Local Government Committee this Friday. And I understand that before we go there are a couple of sets of issues to discuss. One of them was raised by Carla Black in her letter of January 2 that I think has been sent to all of you. And there are really two matters in that letter. One is a proposed addition to the priorities section of the report, the draft report, and that would go, I believe, at page 14, where we talk about priorities and what we're doing with those priorities. So we've got three listed there: the limitation on landowner liability, protection of public easements, and buyer-seller disclosures. Maine woodland owners are suggesting that we add a fourth priority that we can work on in the future. And the wording is this, I'll read it from Carla's letter. The Commission recognizes that one of the biggest areas of conflict on discontinued and abandoned roads is the unfettered use of public easements by those who do not need to use the easement to access their property by necessity. The result is those that need to use the property end up maintaining the road for the general public, but do not have the authority to control access or use. The Commission will continue to discuss solutions to this important problem. Carla, would you like to speak to that? And
I think you've covered it. Really, I just think it's an issue that we've seen as a problem, and one that I think is the commission, I think, has talked about as working on in the future. Particularly, you know, we've looked at the ATV issues and recognized that those are a problem. So I just thought that it would be helpful to add that as a priority that we decide that we commit to look at in the future.
Thank you.
Comments from any of the commissioners?
So my only question is, I mean, I'm supportive of adding this, but I'm wondering, I mean, one of the other parts of this, and maybe we're already covering it, but maybe it needs to be added to this, is not just dealing with those of us who don't own land but are using the public easement, but the people who own land being able to use it. Isn't that, I mean, we still haven't really resolved that issue either, right? And we've heard from a lot of these people, they can't, I think those other set of notes that you attached, the guy said he's spending all this money because of one person who has 2% ownership and is blocking it. I mean, that's a significant issue from what I see is some of these, we got the issue where people are using them even though we wish they weren't. Other areas, we got people being blocked off and losing access to their homes or camps or whatever. I think those are both issues that we need to be talking about. If we haven't made them a priority, then that additional part maybe should be added.
All right.
Yes.
Roberta, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with what Carla added. I'm glad that she got that in there. I think we've kind of been distracted by what the state and local committee assigned us with for our latest project, and that kind of pulled us away from what we were working on originally. I also definitely agree with Brian that one of the big issues that should be a big priority is access. And there are two ways that people lose access. One is if the road was actually discontinued without easement, and the other is if the road is being destroyed by people who are using it but not contributing to maintenance. And those both end up with access issues. So I think putting in that there is a problem with access, that should definitely be one of our priorities. I also wanted to mention when it comes to property disclosures, I think, and I don't know how many people saw the latest email that I sent in just a little while ago. I think we need to celebrate what Pete's been working on for getting the information more readily available on the DOT website so people can find out what the access to a property is, whether it's maintained by the public or not.
All right. Other comments on the proposed added priority? And actually what Brian has is really a fifth, which would be, we could state it, I think, as another priority is access over abandoned and discontinued roads where there is no public easement and access is blocked. Is that a fair way of stating your concern, Brian?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I've heard, and I'll be honest, I don't know whether I heard the whole story or not, but I've heard there are places where there supposedly is a public easement and yet they're still blocking it. But
Yes.
yeah, blocking, you know, the people who live along these things should at the very least be able to use them. Maybe the rest of us shouldn't, but they ought to be able to. And I'm hearing in several cases where they're losing their right. In some cases, you know, gates have been put up and removed by people in town, you know, by the town itself. And in other cases, they've been told they stand and then people don't have any access. So I think that whether it's a public easement or not a public easement, the access to those people to the land on that road, whether they live there or like in, you know, Swome's scenario, they own land, they need access, and they shouldn't be able to be blocked off by whoever the person is at the end of the road.
As I said, there's more than one manner in which somebody can lose access. There's loss of access because the road was discontinued without easement. There's loss of access because it was discontinued with a public easement, and the public use of the road is destroying access. And then there's also questions of where there's a disagreement over what the status of the road is. And maybe one person thinks it's an easement and another person thinks it isn't an easement. And the one who thinks it isn't an easement blocks off all access.
I think that if the landowners who find themselves on a public easement all come to an agreement on their use of it, they can block the road to everybody else.
No. If it's a public easement, they're not allowed to block it.
Well, I think that comes down to how the public easement was created.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking, Jim, maybe you can help us here with this part, but I'm looking at the manual on public easements, and one of the highlighted boxes says private landowners cannot prohibit public access, but they can erect gates and bars for the purpose of discouraging excessive traffic. So is that not still law of the land?
You're getting into the history of it now, and this is where I really agree with you, but the law doesn't. This is where I've been saying that there should be two different kinds of private ways, if we go back to that term for a minute. There are private ways that were originally laid out as a private way to somebody's land that was not yet connected to the public road system. And they were invariably dead ends because it went to somebody's property. And yes, the public had the right to go there, but that was where they were allowed to put up gates and bars to limit unwarranted nuisance traffic. And then when the legislature came along and said that, well, really all private ways are public easements, then they put into the law that they can't be obstructed. In the abandonment statute, there's a clause right at the end of it, I believe, that says that a landowner with permission of the town or the town itself can remove gates and obstructions. So basically they've said, well, no, you can't put up a gate on a public easement because we can just take it down. So I really think that there should be two different kinds of private ways. There should be the ones that were never intended to be for wide open, everything goes public use. And then there are the ones that have been made public easements so as not to landlock people. And these are often through roads. And those are the ones that cause the big problem.
Well,
Right.
there's a wrinkle on that. And that is, if you go back and Roberta's talking about the legislative change that was made in 1976, which basically said all prior private ways are now public easements. And, okay. Back, you not only could create a private way subject to gates and bars by statute, like Roberta said, laying out to get your farm to town and all, but also that was what was left over after discontinuance if the town meeting voted or if the town voted. So if the legislative body said, yeah, we still want to allow people to use that as an easement, as an access, they would say that it is a private, it's discontinued subject to a private way subject to gates and bars. So you would also get it that way. So what you could say is basically any private way before 1976 had with it the idea of subject to gates and bars. But it's an antiquated concept, and what municipalities do with public easements, I think you've seen in your experience, Ryan and Pete, you've seen through Maine DOT local roads. Towns keep it open.
Yep.
And they keep it open for access.
So that,
and so I don't know if we want to talk about getting rid of gates and bars, but
I just want to know if Carla's suggestion, I just want to lead it to there, if Carla's suggestion accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish here.
Well, I have just one question on word choice, and that is one of the biggest areas of conflict on this, on discontinued and abandoned roads, is the unfettered use of public easements by those who don't need to use that easement to access their property. If it's a public easement, anybody in the public has the right to use it. The concept of a public easement has, and Roberta and I will disagree, but there's a footnote in Manter versus the Town of Fayette that I think supports my position. Roberta would disagree with that, but I understand. I think the concept of a public easement is that the public has an unfettered right to use that public easement for any reason that it wants to that's lawful. And so I agree that there's an inherent unfairness in making people who live along that public easement solely responsible for maintaining it when the public is using it. I can agree with that. And that's why I had supported the idea of making sure that people who do that work are immune from liability, so that Roberta and her husband aren't potentially liable for maintaining the road that the public uses. That's at least an interim step. Some people would like to go further than that. I get it. So I would just suggest, I agree with, we can include Carla's statement. My suggestion is, can we please just delete the word unfettered? If we can do that, I would support a motion to add that to the report at page 14 as a fourth priority. And you want to do that as a motion now? Is there more discussion? Or
Yes, can I ask why you want to take out the word unfettered? Because I thought I heard you saying that you thought it should be in there, but then you said it should be taken out.
well, I don't think, well, it makes it sound like the unfettered use of a public easement is a problem.
It is.
And I think it's the law. I think the problem is that there is a conflict, and it's because of the use of public easements by those who don't need to use it to get to their property. I can understand that. That's a conflict. I just think that by saying the problem is the unfettered use, well, that's what they're entitled to under the law.
But that's what makes it so unfair.
Well, if the public doesn't have a right to use it, then why should the public be spending any money in those instances where municipalities choose to maintain a public easement?
Well, the problem is that if the public were only using it, say, for coming in to visit somebody who lived on the road, then that probably wouldn't be as much of a problem. But it's where they use it any way they want to, anytime they want to, at any time of the year, when maybe the people who live there are trying to stay off it during mud season so it doesn't get messed up. And then somebody else, because they have an unfettered right to be there, comes in and destroys the road.
But wouldn't those other laws, like the ATV law, for example, cover some of the stuff you're concerned about there?
Some of it may, and the town could post that as it posts other roads with regard to heavy trucks during mud season.
We've tried that, and it didn't work because in our case, we're so close to the town line that even though the road that you had to go on to get to our road was posted in our town, it wasn't posted in the next town over. And they knew they only had to sneak about 1/10 of a mile to get in onto our road. And they came in when the road was posted and loaded up and left before law enforcement could get there. And
this is where we had
met them going out the road. But couldn't. He said he met them going out the public road, but couldn't stop them there because they were no longer on the posted road. And so he had no way of knowing for sure that that was the truck we were complaining about. And by then, they were already gone.
We deadlocked on the vote related to responsibility or liability for things like that, right? We deadlocked on that vote already, didn't we? On that issue.
We did deadlock on the liability immunity limitation.
Yeah. Jim, I have a question about that. I don't know who the best one is to answer this, but if it's a discontinued road with a public easement, does the town have the right to post that for mud season?
Well, it's an interesting question, but where the town has the right to control access, the public's right to use that road, it seems to me that they could post it in order to preserve the road, especially if they're maintaining it.
Yeah, if they're not maintaining it,
That's what,
highly
I don't
unlikely-
think they can post it.
Well,
I-
and even if they could, they wouldn't.
Right. Who,
Because
and who's gonna, and the, like most of these places, I would say, like, I mean, I could think of several places that there's not even any law enforcement there. There's not a local law enforcement. It's a sheriff's department that's gonna be covering it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like in Roberta's situation, like that's still gonna be the sheriff's department. And really, I mean, if it's not posted, there's no violation.
Yeah, I would say though, and I don't, maybe Roberta will disagree with this, but I would say that most people, when they see the posted signs, those orange posted signs, for the most part, those are respected just because they don't want to get in trouble.
I think the problem is, and I mean, those posted signs don't mean that the 4x4 pickup truck with the 44-inch tires are going to stay out of there because they don't think that they're the heavy load.
Correct.
And that's, I think Roberta, I mean, she talks about hunting season and all that stuff when there's a lot of traffic and stuff. I mean, I agree with Jim when he says this is a public easement. The public has a right to go in there. They're not, unless it's a private road and gated, like they're going to come through.
Other thoughts? The potential motion is to add the language suggested by Carla and the Maine Woodland owners to page 14 as a fourth priority. My suggestion is to drop the word unfettered, and I would move to adopt that with the taking unfettered out. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that, Jim.
Discussion?
So I'm concerned here. Are we going to lose getting this in over the word unfettered? That's my only concern. I mean, I get where you're coming from because legally they have an unfettered right, but I also get where, Carla and Roberta are coming from because it's that unfettered right which is leading to the problem. So we're not, by leaving unfettered in there, we're not saying that we disagree with the law. We're just identifying what part of the law is causing the problem. Are we not? Or do you feel like by putting it in there, we're saying we're in conflict with the law?
Well, I view it as being an objection to that unfettered use. So that's how I see it. But the board wants to vote that down. The board can vote that down and come back with a different motion.
Jim, just for clarity, removing unfettered isn't changing anything. It's just kind of changing the appearance across the board of. It's a lot tougher to understand that you can go there with a 4-wheel drive or tank. Is that
right?
What we're doing?
It's changing the tone of it, I think.
Yes. Okay. Understood.
Carla, where are you at on this?
I think in the spirit of compromise, we could take the word out and move forward.
All right.
Roll call vote then.
Carla Black,
Yes.
Brian Bronson,
Yes.
Peter Coughlin,
Yes.
Rebecca's out, Jim Katsifikis,
Yes.
Chris McCabe,
Yes.
Roberta Manter,
Yes.
Vivian Michaela's out, John Monk,
Yes.
Kathy Nadeau,
Sorry, yes. Yes.
Ryan Pelletier,
Yes.
Steve Young.
Yes.
Thank you. And also in the spirit of making sure that we all get our thoughts in this appropriately, I would propose a motion to add priority 5. Another priority for future discussion is access over abandoned and discontinued roads where there is no public easement or the existence of a public easement is disputed and access is blocked by one or more landowners.
So moved.
Agreed.
Second.
Any discussion?
Roberta, is that getting to what you were talking about?
That gets to 2/3 of it. The third circumstance is where there is a public easement and everyone agrees that it's a public easement, and as a result, the public use is destroying the road, which again destroys access.
I think that's actually part of Carla's.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go in there and look at it, that's the reason for that is the destruction that's happening. So I think we've got them all. I think that
Okay.
part, that last one, Roberta, is actually in Carla's, in Woodlands.
Jim, could you read the language again that you had proposed?
Yes.
Boy, I'm going to hope I can do this. The commission recognizes that another priority for future discussion is access over abandoned and discontinued roads where there is no public easement or the existence of a public easement is disputed, comma, and access is blocked by one or more landowners.
Yeah.
So you're proposing that we just take up the topic as a priority, is that's all we're,
Right.
okay, thank you.
We just want them to know that we're still thinking about this in the
Yep.
future.
Yep.
I think it's one of the
We don't
top,
lose track.
it's definitely one of the top priorities. Thank you, Carla, for bringing that up for sure.
Yep.
All right, if there's no further discussion, can we go to a vote? Roll call, please.
Carla Black,
Yes.
Brian Bronson,
Yes.
Peter Coughlin,
Yes.
Rebecca Graham is out, James Katsioufikis,
Yes.
Chris McCabe,
Yes.
Roberta Manter,
Yes.
Vivian McHale is out, John Monk,
Yes.
Kathy Nadeau,
Yes.
Ryan Pelletier,
Yes.
Steve Young.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So that's one of the comments that Carla had raised in her letter. The other is a concern that with the change that we're proposing to particularly section 3105A, because remember we're trying to go from private way to public easement where it's appropriate. And this is at page 5 of the proposed legislation, halfway down the page, section 3105A, use of town equipment. The concern is, are we limiting, unintendedly, are we limiting municipalities' authority to work on public easements? And Roberta has joined in that comment as well. And as I look at it, I understand the concern, and I'm going to suggest something that might get us where we would want to be. If you go about halfway down that, it says right now it says the legislative body of any town or village corporation may authorize the municipal officers of the town, and that would be the council or the select board, or assessors of the village corporation, to use its highway equipment on public easements within such town or village corporation. And instead of right now, it says whenever such municipal officers or assessors consider it advisable in the best interest of the town or village corporation for fire and police protection. And the concern is that might be too limiting. Well, then we would say that they could use that highway equipment on public easements within such town or village to plow, maintain, and repair such public easements to the extent directed by the legislative body and whenever. So we're being really clear that the town meeting or the town council or the village corporation can authorize the town to plow, maintain, and repair public easements to the extent they direct. Now they may say this one only gets summer maintenance because it's just used by X. This one, it's up to their discretion, but we're not taking anything away. Right now, the law is that the legislative body may direct the town to maintain these public easements to the extent the legislative body directs. They may say summer maintenance, they may say summer and winter maintenance. They may say winter maintenance only, whatever. We're not changing that. We are putting that into the law to make sure it's there. And we're leaving in the current piece, which talks about fire and police protection. How does that strike folks?
Could you, I'm sorry, I'm the
I'll go back.
repeater here. Could you ask, could you repeat the language again?
Sure. So that in the fourth line, after it says within such town or village corporation, I suggest adding to plow, maintain, and repair such public easements to the extent directed by the legislative body. And
I kind of like that, but I'm just wondering whether I will still run up against the excuse that some towns use that it's only fire and police protection if your house is actually on fire.
well, we're making it clear here. It's another authorization. You know, they can either take it to the town meeting, or the town can just say, yeah, go ahead and send a plow out because the house is burning down. That's not the only reason they can do it. It's clearly going to state in the law that the town meeting can authorize the town to go plow, maintain, and repair. It's up to them.
So do you see the language that you're adding as sort of creating a blanket authority for municipalities in addition to the limitations that are already in 3105A?
I don't think it's creating anything new. I see it as recognizing the authority they've always had and exercised. Which
isn't recognized anywhere else in statute, is that right?
It's not recognized explicitly, but it's
been the practice.
Municipalities have always considered they had, and MMA, Maine Municipal Association, I don't want to speak for it, but in my experience has always been advising municipalities have this authority.
Do we know if, I mean, did she tell us ahead of time she wasn't coming today?
I had not heard from her, but I did send out the reminder email this morning.
Wish we knew what their
she had
thought was.
Abstained from voting on this one.
Jim, is this as what Roberta just said in that language that exists about fire and police protection? Because that is still a little fuzzy and open to lots of interpretation, is this a time to clarify what exactly that means? It's, you know, some people could say, well, you need to plow my camp road because my house might get on fire. Whereas that was not the original intent, I don't think. The intent was to open it up when there is a fire or when you need police, which practically doesn't make a whole lot of sense anyway.
Right.
But is this an opportunity to kind of clarify what the intent was supposed to be?
Well, again, in my experience, Maine Municipal Association's Legal Services Division has interpreted this provision as being the basis and authority for municipal town meetings, town and city councils to authorize maintenance on public easements, generally, to allow public access. And we've always, I'd always advised that the legislative body can authorize a municipality to maintain, repair, plow that public easement to the extent the legislative body authorizes. So the town meeting in Falmouth might, Wyndham might say we are going to budget X amount of dollars to do winter maintenance on these roads, or there might only be summer maintenance because they're camp roads around lakes. And so I think that's always been there. This has been the section that we've always relied on. It doesn't exactly say that because it talks about fire and police protection. But we're talking about more, and that is for public access over the public easement, which is unfettered. But it can't be made if it's not maintained, as Roberta would tell us. So I think that adding in this phrase, to plow, maintain, and repair such public easements to the extent directed by the legislative body, clarifies it clarifies what has been the advice to municipalities for many years now by just stating it explicitly in the statute without taking anything away. So to the extent that towns want to rely on this for saying, yeah, we sent a plow out in front of the fire truck because Jim's house is burning down, that's in here too.
Can I say something?
Please.
I don't like the word may authorize the municipal officers. So they may or they may not. So this leaves it up to, this doesn't do anything. Because probably, and I worked for the town as a counselor for 12 years. If I see may authorize, it's not going to get done.
And if you say shall, there will be a fiscal note attached to this and it's going to be killed.
So may is just like going back to the same thing that we've been trying to correct.
Well,
can I ask a question? Isn't the may for the legislative body, not the board?
Correct.
Council? So it's not that the council may, it's if the townspeople, the legislative body, that could be the council in some towns, I will give you that. But if it gets to that level and they authorize it, then it's I mean, no town council that's authorized by their town meeting is then going to say, well, that said may. I interpret the may as giving the option to the legislative body.
Right.
Has the authority to.
Right.
It has the authority to do it.
But I get Catherine's point because I had my town meeting hat on. In a town where the legislative body is the town council, I can see where she's coming from. But I also agree with the word shall will just kill it. So
yeah, you're either going to have shall, should, or may. And shall and should is not going to work. May just gives the town meeting the ability to authorize them. It's totally optional.
It sets out that they have the authority. They have the authority now.
Yes,
it really doesn't change anything, right?
It doesn't change
I mean,
anything.
all this is doing, hopefully, is sending a new message that, yeah, you can do this, but you've always been able to, and you still cannot do it if you so desire.
Well, I think it would send that message that you can do this. It doesn't necessarily change things, but I think Roberta raised the point earlier that right now there are some towns that feel they don't have that authority because they say it's just to run the plow in front of the fire truck. Roberta, I don't mean to be speaking for you. You've got your hand up. Go for it.
Several years ago, in one of the legislative committees that studied this issue before, they got an excerpt from the MMA manual, and I'm reading from part of that. It says, a public easement differs from a town way in that while the general public has a right of unobstructed access by motor vehicle or foot over a public easement, the municipality is not obligated to maintain or repair a public easement. A municipality's legislative body may authorize the repair and maintenance of public easements, but is not required to do so. When a municipality does maintain public easements, it is not required to maintain them to the same level or degree of maintenance as town ways. Since the decision to maintain is discretionary, the level of maintenance is likewise up to the legislative body. Additionally, the municipality is not liable for defects in or lack of repair to public easements, but may be liable for injuries caused by negligent acts or omission in its ownership, maintenance, or use of vehicles or machinery and equipment on such roads.
Jim, I think you wrote that.
I think I at least edited that, and I think if you look to the footnote for that, it will say 23 MRSA section 3105-A.
Yes.
So I think what we're proposing to do doesn't create anything new, but it puts it clearly in law, so that when someone comes in, like Roberta coming into town hall to talk to the manager or to talk to the select board to ask, it is clear that the town has the authority. They can put this on the town meeting warrant for town meeting to consider. That may be helpful.
Again, we're not changing anything. We're just making clarity for people to understand.
But if the word may is really negative, could you just instead use the words maintains the authority to, or something like that?
May's
if people don't like that may word.
Yeah.
Shall's the one that'll be negative, right? Not may.
Well, Catherine didn't like the may, I don't think.
Well,
May is
what's in the existing law.
Okay.
Right, so this isn't doing anything. This is just doing more of the same, but just spelling it out a little clearer. But may means yes or no. Yes, we'll do it, or no, we won't. So to me,
This isn't requiring any change, but it's making it clear. It eliminates the argument that some make that the town doesn't have the authority to do this.
Correct.
Jim, minor point here in the second line. It says use its highway equipment. I don't know if that's being too picky, but you know, the largest majority of towns don't have any highway equipment. It's all contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So might someone pick this apart because it says its, which implies it belongs and is owned by the town. Could someone say, well, the contractor, you know, am I being too picky here or not?
No, that's how, you could drop the its.
Well, what you could do is you could say its or its agents if you really wanted to carry all the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. No one's raised any issues with that the way it's formulated now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to make that a motion then to make this change to 3105A. Second?
I'll second it.
Any further comment? If none, then let's have a roll call vote, please.
Carla Black.
I just want to explain my vote, possibly, if I can, for a second. I am going to vote no because my previous underlying vote was no, and I feel like I need to maintain the consistency there. I do appreciate the commission giving this thought and some consideration. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that.
Brian Bronson.
Yes.
Peter Coughlin.
Yes.
Rebecca Graham is out. James Katsioufikis.
Yes.
Chris McCabe.
Yes.
Roberta Manter.
I'm not quite sure on what I'm voting here. Is this just a change to 3105, or is this repeating a vote on that whole subchapter?
Just a change on 3105A.
Okay, if it's just 3105A, then I would say yes.
Vivian McHale is out. John Monk.
Yes.
Kathy Nadeau. Did we lose Kathy?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Ryan Pelletier.
Yes.
And Steve Young.
Yes.
So there's 2 no's, 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8 yeses. So motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next, there was a request that Roberta has alluded to, and she would like to be able to reconsider the vote with regard to all of these changes from private way to public easement. That would be, when you're looking at your draft of proposed legislation, that would be page 1 through page 1 through page 7. All the changes to Title 23, Section 1 of these proposed changes. And so procedurally, to change vote, that would be a motion to reconsider. A motion to reconsider would have the effect of undoing the vote on this matter and bringing us back to the deliberation stage, so we would be able to discuss and revote. We don't have bylaws. We have the authority to adopt bylaws. We kind of just launched right into things without adopting bylaws. That doesn't prevent us from being able to really, create our own procedure. It's the law in Maine that, for example, planning boards, boards of appeals, administrative boards have the right to make up their own procedure where they don't have rules or their rules might fall short, so long as the rule they do make is fair and doesn't violate state law. Now, we have, as I said, we haven't adopted rules of procedure. There are many boards that have adopted this wonderful book, Robert's Rules of Order. It's over 600 pages, and it is, I think, way too complicated for a standard commission board or planning board or board of appeals or whatever. There's just way too much there. But if we had adopted Robert's Rules of Order and someone were to ask for reconsideration, a person who voted in the affirmative on a matter could bring a motion for reconsideration at the same or next meeting, and then the rest of the board would vote on it. So we don't have rules. I think we can make up a rule here that is fair and it doesn't violate state law. And so the question is, if Roberta wanted to seek reconsideration of the vote on what is now Section 1 of our draft legislation, she could, I think, and the rest of the board can vote on that as to whether to approve that. I think it's fair, but I think also what this points out is I need to draft a set of bylaws. Those need to be reviewed by our representative from the AG's office, Vivian, and then brought to the board for action. So before we have our next meeting, I know what I'm going to do for homework. But for today, my suggestion is that it wouldn't be illegal. It would be fair for us to entertain a motion for reconsideration and act on it. It's the next meeting. Roberta is the person who voted in the affirmative, and therefore, under Robert's rules, which we haven't adopted, but we can by analogy, that would be a way that this could come before the board, and then we can revote Section 1. Do we want to proceed in that manner? Any objections to that idea? Before we take the actual motion, any objections to that idea?
Can I ask a question about the motion that we're talking about?
Sure.
Is it the one reflected on page 8 of the December 21st minutes?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Do we have heartburn with the concept of entertaining a motion for reconsideration in the absence of bylaws, but by that procedure, which I think is fair to treat this situation? Okay, Roberta?
It doesn't look like there are any objections, so if I could, I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider the vote on that subchapter.
Subchapter 2, Section 1 of the proposed legislation. Is there a second?
I'll second that, just to get it going.
Discussion.
Subchapter 2, you said? What was the?
Right. If you take a look at the proposed legislation, it's Title 23, Chapter 305, Subchapter 2. That's what we call Section 1 of our proposed legislation, and it goes from page 1 through the top of page 7.
The reason I voted yes on this the first time was because I do agree with changing the title of the whole subchapter from private ways to public easements. And I do agree with changing it in 3105A and 3106 from private ways to public easements. What I disagree with is the idea that under Section 3101 through 3104, private individuals can be forced at the threat of having a notice of claim or a lien filed against their property. They must contribute to the cost of maintenance of a public easement. And this is a road where the public can come in, damage the road, and then if they have a statutory road association, the abutters can be forced to bear the expense of repairing the damage that was done by somebody who has no particular reason for being there. And I don't think that's fair. It's one thing to have a voluntary road association where people can say, yeah, it needs to be repaired, I'll pitch in on it. Or they can say, I don't feel like I should be held responsible for repairing this. I didn't do the damage. None of the people who live here did the damage. We need to chase the person who did it if we can find them or something, but I shouldn't be forced to pitch in on the cost of repairing it, and therefore I'm going to vote no on this one. Under this law, if we say that you can form a statutory road association on a public easement, they wouldn't have that choice, because if they don't pay what they've been required to pay, then they can end up with a notice of claim or a lien against their property. And I don't think that's fair.
I do have a question about that, Roberta. I was kind of wondering, there's got to be situations out there, obviously, where there's 4 people on the road, 3 people want to contribute, and then there's one person that doesn't. So the 3 people in there for lack of a better term, they get screwed by the one person at the end that doesn't want to pay. So there's a situation for that in every situation, I would think. If it's a voluntary road association.
I think the issue, and I don't want to speak for Roberta, but correct me if I'm wrong, you don't like it when a formal road association forms and has the ability to lien, correct?
It's one thing on a private road where you can limit the use of that road, and you can say this road is not open to unlimited public use. You can post it saying private road, no trespassing, or private road for use of owners and guests only. There are various signs you can get. But when it's open to the public, then that's where forming a statutory road association becomes problematic. And I do know of one case where there was a discontinued road that had been kept as a public easement, and they did form a statutory road association, and then somebody saw it as a through road on GPS. It wasn't a through road anymore by any practical means, but it still showed on GPS, and he came in during mud season, got stuck, had to get towed, and got stuck again, and had to get towed again before he got out, and did considerable damage to the road. And because it was a statutory road association, they were telling all the abutters that they had to bear the cost of fixing it. And some of the members of the road association didn't think that was fair, that they should have to maintain the road for the public's use. And it got to be a real battle amongst the members of the road association.
But Roberta, I assume a vote was taken and the majority decided that it was everyone's responsibility to maintain that section of road that was damaged?
Well, again, there's the problem. They would be willing to maintain it if the damage was done by people who had business being there. But when it's damaged by somebody from outside who doesn't have any particular reason to be using the road in the first place, then I don't blame them for objecting to it.
Well, it's not a private way. Public has an expectation that they can go there.
I think you all know by now, I live on a public easement that has a statutory road association, and it would be a cold day and where before I voted not to force someone to pay their share of the damage. There's 85 owners, and we've had instances where 2 or 3 said, I don't want to pay. I don't agree with it. I'm only there a few weeks out of the year, blah, blah, blah. Bring them to court. Guess what? They got to pay.
One thing I'd note that is on the draft, we did recognize in a footnote Roberta's argument and concern about this. So I hope that helps to convey the concern you have with that issue.
That does help. But if the vote goes the way it does before, I don't think changing my vote from yes to no is going to change the final outcome. I think there were only 1 or 2 votes against, so I think it would probably still carry. But I would feel better about to have my vote registered as a no.
In order to do that, we'd have to grant the motion for reconsideration and then re-vote on that matter. So there's a motion for reconsideration before the body. Unless there's any other comment, are we ready to have a vote on the reconsideration motion? Okay, we did have a second on that, right, Heather?
Yes, Catherine.
It was Catherine who seconded that, right?
Sorry, my computer was not unmuting. There we go. Sorry. Apologize. Yes, so we can take a vote if everybody's ready.
Let's do a roll call vote on that motion for reconsideration.
Carla Black,
Yes.
Brian Bronson,
Yes.
Peter Coughlin,
Yes.
Rebecca Graham is out, James Katsioufikis,
Yes.
Chris McCabe,
Yes.
Roberta Manter,
Yes.
John Monk,
Yes.
Kathy Nadeau,
Yes.
Ryan Pelletier,
Yes.
Steve Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. 10
All
yeses.
right. So now we are back to whether or not to approve this change, the set of changes for subchapter 2 that we'll see as section 1 of our proposed legislation, which would of course have that change to 3105A that we've approved. So is there a motion to adopt this proposed change as part of our report?
What change are we adopting? The 3105 town equipment or something?
We are adopting what's shown as section 1 of our proposed legislation, and that is the changes from in Title 23 MRS sections 3101 through 3106, which largely are to change from private way to public easement, but also include that change that we adopted earlier today on to 3105A now. Is that clear? It's the same vote essentially that we took on that's on page 8 of the minutes. I will move adoption of subchapter 2.
Jim, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right document. It's draft abandoned roads dated 1/5/2024.
Correct.
Okay.
And you'll see there section 1, which starts at page 1 and goes through like the middle of page 7. And these are all changes primarily dealing with changing private way in the current statute for road associations to public easement.
Correct.
So I'll move to make that to approve those changes.
Second it.
Any further discussion?
So we're not at this point taking up the issue that Roberta has with the road association's abilities to lien?
That's Roberta's objection to being in favor of this.
Right.
And if you feel strongly as she does, and I'm, she's entitled to that opinion, that private citizens should not be forced to spend private money on a public easement, then you might vote this down, as I assume she's going to. Okay. But otherwise, it would be over her objection that we might adopt this.
Okay.
And other than that change, we're basically converting private way to public easement throughout the document.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other change would be that we would be including the change to 3105A with regard to public easements that we approved earlier today. So with that, we have a motion to approve. We have a second. We ready for a roll call vote? Heather?
Yep.
Please.
Carla Black?
No.
Brian Bronson?
Yes.
Peter Coughlin?
Yes.
Rebecca Graham is out. James Katsioufikis?
Yes.
Chris McCabe?
Yes.
Roberta Manter?
No.
Vivian McHale is out. John Monk?
Yes.
Kathy Nadeau?
Yes.
Ryan Pelletier?
Yes.
Steve Young?
Yes.
8 yeses, 2 noes, motion carries.
Thank you. Now, I think the last item of business before us is Roberta had made a suggestion that came through today on we've been dealing with some of the heavier questions of public easements and all, and it's all good. That's what the legislature's asked us to do, but she suggests that we might want to also celebrate the progress that this committee has made in two respects. One, actually Pete's progress at Maine DOT in improving the map viewer tool. And this is something we might want to tout to the legislature as a positive with regard to roads in Maine. And also the fact that we have our own website now and our own YouTube channel. And so there's another source for information about roads in Maine on our website, so that we can add those two items to the report. I think everyone would be pleased to be able to tell the legislature what's going on. I don't know that we need a formal motion for this, but does everybody agree with the idea of including successes? I see a lot of nodding heads. So any objections? Okay, I've even got a thumbs up from Roberta, so I know I'm on the right track. Good. No, I think that's fine. So we'll make sure we get that into the final draft, and Heather and I will be working to make those changes that we've all discussed this afternoon to that. So if there are is there any other business for today?
I have one other change to the report, and it's just minor. It's on the footnote on page 7. It refers to Maine woodlot owners, and it should be Maine woodland owners.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Happens frequently.
There is a Woodlot Owners Association, isn't there?
It used to be SWOM, Small Woodlot Owners Association of Maine.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, well, thank you. I stand corrected, and I'll make sure that change gets made.
Thank you.
So Carla, is the old SWOM now Maine Woodland Owners?
Yes, we rebranded a few years ago, so we're one and the same.
Okay, all right.
All right.
So I have a question here. Is this going before the committee Friday?
Yes.
And if this is being just given, or is it going to be presented? I mean, I'm just wondering if, like, is Peter going to show that link demonstrated, or what are we doing?
What we're going to give this to them. It'll just be transmitted to the committee for Friday. But what happened last year is that the committee asked members of this commission to attend a work session so they could meet with us and get some explanation of what went into the report and what it meant. I presume they might do the same thing this session, but it is a short session and they are busy. And Catherine can tell us about that piece, but they may be too busy to do that. But we'll make ourselves available if they ask.
Okay. So we don't need to worry about that on Friday. I guess that was my question.
No travel to Augusta on Friday.
So they won't be having a hearing on it on Friday, but they may have a hearing on it later?
Well, we are proposing legislation, and if the committee wants to take that further and actually have a bill prepared, we'll find out about it that way.
And they'd have to submit the bill, correct?
One of the committee members, I assume, would submit a bill.
So the answer is we do not have to be there on Friday?
Correct.
Okay, good, because I'm scheduled to take 2 cats in to be spayed on Friday. We're trying to catch up with the feral population in our area, and I can't do 2 places at once.
Okay, I think you don't have to worry about being in Augusta on Friday.
Good.
You may have other worries, but you won't have to worry about that. So thank you. Okay, anything else for today?
Roberto, I'm glad you're going to discontinue them and not abandon the cats.
Yes, that's right. That's nice.
Well done,
like
Peter. Way to
That's
go.
a good thing. Very
Speaking of
good.
well done, Jim, thank you.
You are.
You and Heather have done a lot of the heavy lifting here, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you all for your input and your advice and your hard work on this. So we'll get that filed Friday. Thank you, and we'll figure out when we meet next after the dust settles. So we'll at least maybe take a couple weeks off. How's that?
I think we move on from the bake sale and sell shirts like Pete just suggested.
Mhm. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Think so.
Happy New Year.
Bye, Ellen.
All right, see ya.
We're adjourned.